15 years into Hatshepsut's reign, she commissioned a trip to a land known as Punt, which is modern-day Somalia. And the voyage took 2 years. They took 5 big ships. Cinnamut, remember Cinnamut? I talked about her alleged secret lover, her right-hand man. He was the expedition leader. So let me tell you about it. The land of Punt was highly valued because of its unique myrrh and incense. So when they got there, they went bearing gifts. They took with them, Hatshepsut's entourage took with them gifts of tools, daggers, axes, necklaces, rings, strings of beads, and leg bangles. After the exchange, the people of Punt and the people of Kemet, they had a big feast. Y'all, when they got finished with this feast, these are some inscriptions on the walls that they left about their journey. And I think the people of Kemet were so intelligent by leaving proof of their works, because even with proof, people still mislead people as far as who they were. But anyway, they loaded up the boats with exotic woods, fresh myrrh, trees, ivory, gold, cinnamon, cosmetics, apes, monkeys, dogs, leopard and panther skins, jewelry, cattle, a live cheetah, and 7 couples from the land of Punt. This was the first time that it was recorded that trees were transplanted from one nation to another. So, and items from this voyage was also used in the building project of the temple, Zozazazru, meaning the Holy of Holies, and we'll get into that very soon. Hatshepsut. So when they got to Punt, I told you they came bearing gifts. I forgot to tell you this part, but the queen of Punt and her husband, they greeted them, of course, and this is her, Queen Ati. She was described as a short woman, a big-boned woman, and some people call these people pygmies, but they are African peoples. So, you know, they met them and all was well within the 2 lands. Child, and if that was not enough, Hatshepsut commissioned the building of a mortuary temple. And this temple was in honor of the god Amun. Zazru meant the Holy of Holies. Today they call it Deir el Bahari, and it still exists. And I can't wait to make it there. This temple is, if you look at it, this is only one view, but if you look at it, it's actually built into like that stone mountain in the back. This temple is where most of her story was recorded. The art produced under her authority was soft girl season, and delicate. This was one of the most elegant temples in Egypt. Her portraits in the temple showed her to have been a feminine, graceful woman, despite the fact she often dressed as a male. It was so admired by the pharaohs that came after her that they chose to be buried nearby, later becoming the Valley of the Kings. Later, the Greeks would adopt its architectural style for its structures. It still stands too. What type of woman was Hatshepsut? I love this. Scribes wrote that she was intelligent, lovely to look upon, graceful in her movement, and fragrant as a flower. She smelt good. She loved myrrh. She was a lover of peace, and she prayed for it frequently. She was religious. Deidre Wembley suggested that Hatshepsut simply expressed the harmony of her yin and yang. She loved peace, but she was also a warrior. She rode into battle when at war, although there were no major wars. She was generous. Anini, the chief of royal works, said this about her. Her Majesty pleased me. She loved me. She recognized my worth at the court. She presented me with things. She magnified me with silver and gold and lifted up my house and all the beautiful stuffs of the royal house. She took good care of the people. During her reign, Kemet was prosperous. The people were pleased with her. They had plenty of work, shelter, and food. She was by far one of the greatest. What was her race? She was of the Negroid race. The drawings on the walls, 3D images that link physical traits to her heirs, DNA samples taken from her great-grandmother, Almos Nefertari, that were compared to hers, X-ray measurements from her male heirs applied to the Trotter-Glisser-Negro equations for femur, tibia, and humerus that yielded high levels of correspondence, all prove this fact. And if you need further proof, Gaston Maspero, a 19th century Egyptologist, stated that by unanimous testimony of ancient Greek historians, the ancient Egyptians belonged to the African race. Why is knowing her race important? Because our best stories have been hijacked by other cultures, leaving many of us confused about who these people were. Just as it was important for Hatshepsut to know her bloodline, as this contributed greatly to her success, the true identity of these African societies, such as Kemet, give us a reference point beyond slavery and allows us the ability to identify with our greatest potential. The end of her reign. This is another view of the temple that she had commissioned behind me. Is words cannot express. So Thutmose III came of age and led a faction of the Amun priesthood to oppose Hatshepsut. They demanded more wealth, although they were very wealthy. They wanted to focus on fighting invaders near their borders. And they thought her rule was bogus because it broke tradition and it was a breach to protocol. And I'm pretty sure they were not happy to know that she had designated her daughter successor, although Thutmose III was selected. Her daughter died before becoming an adult, so that never became a reality. Hatshepsut was something else. She ruled 12 years with her husband, Thutmose II, and 21 years as co-regent and pharaoh to Thutmose III, a total of 33 years. Many speculate on how she died, but that still remains a mystery, perhaps. But she was in her 50s. What is certain is that years after her death, there was a massive campaign to erase her from history by Thutmose III and his followers. Mass destruction of her portraits, statues, and records began. Her name was removed from the king's list, a list of the absolute rulers of Kemet. The most damage was done in her temple, though. Her images were chiseled out, and her name was erased and replaced with Thutmose I, Thutmose II, and Thutmose III. Thutmose III was trying to ensure the succession of Thutmose I to Thutmose III without any female interruption. For 2 long generations after her reign, Kemet was in a constant state of war. Although Hatshepsut was not the first female to have unqualified rule over Egypt, she was the first female ruler of ancient Egypt to reign as a male, with the full authority as pharaoh, when everyone knew full well she was a woman. I will forever be blown away by this story. I admire the intelligence and courage she had to pull off such a feat. I appreciate knowing the importance of bloodline and what it takes to truly be a royal woman, not by saying, but by doing. I smiled inside knowing that she was so supported and loved by many, and how the brothers stepped for her. May the divine be pleased with your soul. The end.